Gather round, my dear people, gather round. My name is Ruby Clay, and I'm going to tell you a tale about the rat folk. Now, we've all seen our Rotolla friends around these parts. Hell, we're even sharing the bar with several of them tonight. But how many people know how they came to join us on the surface? Not many here or anywhere, I'd wager. So, gather round and listen, and if after you want to grace my hat with a few coins, then I'm sure a few drinks will be on me. It all began about 100 years past, maybe even a few more, and it all began, as many of these stories do, with just one person. See, the Rotolla lived a simple life, free from the pains of the surface world. I mean, yes, there was death and disease, and living in the caves below is always a perilous life, filled as they are with beasties aplenty. Just ask some of our dwarven friends gathered here tonight. But they each had their purpose, a place for themselves in the collective throng that was the Rotolla. The story I'm telling tonight, however, is not of the intricacies of a society deep beneath the surface of Pontus. No, this story is of one particular ratkin, the Wave Wanderer, as he came to be known. See, each of the ratkin has their place and their rank marked upon them by the Heart Caves, an ancient cave from which it is said, by the Rotolla at least, to be the wellspring of all life. Each Rotolla, upon reaching adulthood, was expected to journey through the unforgiving depths to the Heart Cave, and there they shall receive their place within the world. And so our young hero ventured, a markless child, deep into the depths, and long and arduous was his task, for survival in the great beneath is never guaranteed. A short tale this would be, however, if he had failed, and of course he prevailed. When he arrived, he saw the walls of the cave begin to shift and glow, speaking to him in the very speech of the world itself. The young Rotolla was awestruck by the visions that were granted to him, and those visions were of something no other Rotolla had seen. He saw the waves. See, the Rotolla before they surfaced had never seen the oceans, the mountains. Hell, they hadn't even seen a tree. They just had the solid rock and the wet clay and the pools of stagnant water that formed down in the bowels of Pontus. The cave's fantastic magics worked upon his form, and his markings and destiny were laid bare for all to see. And so he began the long, treacherous journey back to the clan and back to his home. Now, usually the clan would be hosting a large feast for their returning clansfolk to celebrate their new life and the discovery of their destiny. However, the markings upon the young rat were new, and the elders of the clan knew not what to do with our young hero. He did not bear the mark of the geode, which would place him with the miners, nor the mark of the fungi that would place him with the farmers. The doctors of the Rotolla could not accept him, for he did not carry the marks of the flesh, and the Rotolla themselves would not listen to his words, for the marks of authority were absent from around his throat. My friends, he had been gifted, or perhaps cursed, with the mark of the waves and a galleon ship, and he had no place within the caves. The clan had shunned him, exiled him for the simple fact of his being different, and so he wandered those dark tunnels around his home, for the longest of the times, alone and lonelier by the day, until by chance he stumbled upon a dwarven mining party. Rolf Hammervane, a dwarf, as I'm sure you are aware of no little consequence, was amongst the party of miners that found our young ratkin, and realizing that the youth was alone, made the decision to take him in. See, this was not the first encounter the wise dwarven king had had with the reclusive Rotolla. No, far from it. But usually they would react upon meeting us abovers, as they so kindly call us, by bearing arms or running away. But this one so dearly needed a companion, and was taken with the dwarves to become the first of his kind to venture to the surface. Now, the journey to the surface itself is of little consequence. We all know the famed safety and surety of dwarven tunnels, but the arrival above was not. For the first time in our planet's history, a Rotolla felt the cool breeze touch his face, ruffling his fur as he made his way towards the exit of the cave. But then came the light of the sun, and how the Rotolla shrieked, believing himself blinded and burned by wicked magics that he had never before encountered. The dwarves could do nothing to assure him at first, and they had to wait until nightfall to get him to fully leave the caves. Of course, night fell, as it usually does, and our hero took his first hesitant steps from the beneath and turned his gaze skyward. It's said he fell in love with the surface then. The sight of the moons high above, the stars painting the sky with their flecks of light. And then he turned and saw the waves. He saw the ships, and for the first time since reaching the Heart Cave, he knew his place, and he wept with joy. Now, as the old saying goes, find one, find many, and this rings true in this tale, as the Rotolla started the exodus shortly after, the heart of the clan marking more and more with the signs of the surface, and they began to arrive in our cities and towns, slowly at first, and then as if a flood of warm bodies. Nobody knows quite why the ancient magic decided to send its people to the surface. Scholars have been debating this for decades, and well, being scholars, they will probably be debating this for 1,000 years more. Whatever the reason, we now are joined by our Ratkin brethren, and they have mingled with our society near seamlessly. Of course, at first they had much to learn. The concept of ownership came their way as hard-learned lessons, gaining them perhaps an unfair reputation as thieves at first, but they were fast learners. I've heard that some of the more successful ones even deigned to pay their taxes. So that is the tale of how the Rotolla came to join us in our civilization, in our world on the surface. So thank you all for listening, my friends. May your cups be ever full, and your hearts fuller still. And before you return to your tables to drink away and make merry for the rest of the night, I believe it is my favourite time of the night. Money in the hat for a tale well told. Thank you, sir, and thank you, and thank you. My name is Dakmar Gregorium, and thank you for gathering here today to listen to my short lecture on the natural magics of the Rotolla and their heart cave. Now, of course, as you will all be aware, there is unfortunately only second-hand evidence available for gathering, as the hardcore remaining underground faction of the Rotolla have refused any access from any of the above-ground races, as well as the groups of Rotolla that have ascended to the surface. However, this in itself has given us some leads as to the nature of the magic of the Heart Cave and its magic's effect upon the Rotolla themselves, as we have been able to observe the effects of the Rotolla who have been exiled from being able to make the ritualistic pilgrimage to the Heart Cave. Upon initial study of the Ratkin race, we initially believed that the journey that each youth would undertake pre-Exodus was due to societal norms and pressures. This has been somewhat disproved recently, as interviews conducted by other scholars have determined that upon coming of age, each Rotolla has experienced the sensation of a strange pull guiding them towards the depths of Pontus. This fades over time, but stays at a constant low level of sensation that is strengthened if the individual experiencing the pull, as it is known within the surface Rotolla community, descends into the beneath. This strongly suggests that the markings and the heart cave are not only linked during the one event, but are in fact a form of natural magic that is linked at the moment of birth, not unlike the reactions seen within sorcerers manifesting their powers at a young age. In fact, there seems to be a large number of surface Rotolla who have developed larger magical potential that was otherwise unrecorded by the Rotolla themselves during their evolution and lives beneath the surface. I believe that this is evidence of a living force existing within the Heart Cave, magical in nature of course, and it is this which has created the Rotolla. There are, of course, many accounts throughout the history of Pontus that report meetings with these so-called living gods, but these have been purely anecdotal and were believed to have been exaggerations or accounts detailing particularly powerful magical users, such as the Grand Wizard Bilop-Tep, whom, as we are aware, gained a status as a living god upon his creation of the surface animal kin. I have been led to believe in my studies that the magics that Bilop-Tep harnessed and forged into the Ankh of Tronk and used to create the surface animal kin have been recreated by some force as of yet unknown residing within the Great Beneath. However, as the Ankh of Tronk was not found during the recent excavation of Bilop-Tep's tomb by the esteemed Sirs Badger Braxton, Lionel Weiss, and Akante, we are once again thrown against a roadblock in future studies. The one key difference between the Rotolla and the other animal kin that we have been able to observe is that the magic that created and sustains the Rotolla is very obviously still alive and evolving, whereas the general animal kin populace has simply residual rather than active magics working upon their forms. There are also some physiological differences between the two different races, namely being that the animal kin seem to produce offspring of a variable nature, a bull and a salamander person producing a cat person child, for example, whereas the Rotolla seem to exclusively produce rat-kin forms of offspring. As far as I am aware, there has been no successful reproduction between a surface animal kin and a Rotolla, and I believe that this shows a fundamental difference in their genetic and magical makeup. Unfortunately, until such a time as relations between the surface Rotolla and the beneath Rotolla have improved, we will not be able to study this seemingly living magical source any further, but this is not any reason to stop trying to understand the source of the Heart Cave, as I believe that the magics contained within could have a wide variety of uses, such as improved healing magics as well as the potential for evolutionary acceleration. I thank you for your time, and I will now be answering any questions. Hello everyone, and thank you for listening to episode 1 of Tales from Pontus. My name is Ashleigh Mallaghan, and I am the writer and editor and voice actor for Tales from Pontus. I just want to say a huge thank you for listening to episode 1, and hopefully for many more episodes to come. You can follow me for updates about the show and just life in general on my Twitter, which is at TrashleighM, that's TrashleighM. I look forward to hearing from you there, and once again, just another huge thank you for listening. May your cups be ever full, and your hearts fuller still.